The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along. It is Mondays Off the Ball. Nathan with you on till 10 o'clock. We will have lots of reaction to a frustrating night for Stephen Kenny at the Aviva Stadium. We've got Kevin Doyle coming your way at 7:30, and then we'll hear from Vinnie Perth on the football show from 9. We'll hear as well from Stephen Kenny and Shane Duffy from their post-match press conference, and the thoughts as well of Kenny Cunningham and Gary Breen. Not the start anybody wanted. 53106 is the text number. Add Off the Ball if you want to get in touch on Twitter with any of your thoughts on the weekend and what stood out for you. Munster fans, what the hell is going on? It is almost 10 years without a trophy. 5 successive semi-final defeats, beaten yet again by Leinster. We'll talk about that on Monday Night Rugby with Keith Wood and Liam Toland. Adrian Barry is with us this evening. Good evening.
Evening, Nathan.
And Richie McCormack. Good evening.
Young Nathan, how are you?
I'm very well. So listen, 2 games, 1 defeat. No need to panic. No need to panic. It's obviously Irish football. There's a lot of disagreement. You know, some people like to panic. One of those people who likes to panic is the former one-time Ireland manager, let's not forget, Noel King. So we're all remaining calm. You know, players aren't fully fit. Season has just started. They're sort of friendly. Stephen Kenny says he's been experimental. Here's what Noel King has to say in his column on extra.ie. Stephen Kenny's promise of revolutionising Ireland's style of play has not started the way he planned. As a result, he'll face a torrid time in the coming days as sections of the supporters and media, that's us, voice their anger and opinions. And it won't be nice. Potentially in some quarters, there are those who may want him removed. Adrian Barry, that wasn't great against Finland. Are you calling for Stephen Kenny's removal? Have you seen enough?
I've heard enough of Noel King, if that's the appropriate answer to that. What a lot of nonsense. Like, I mean, even the people who are saying it wasn't great, I haven't heard one person saying that Stephen Kenny needs to be sacked. Or I think he's a bit
bitter,
soured by his own experience, when he might have been a little bit out of his own depth at that point. Like, do you remember that Tony O'Donoghue interview after? I can't even remember.
Germany.
The game.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Was it Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan. Germany was the first game, and then Kazakhstan, yeah.
I don't know, do we need to be listening to guff like that? And I don't think that Stephen Kenny, like, have you heard anybody saying that Stephen Kenny should be sacked?
Well, no, because people aren't idiots. So regardless of if you're disappointed, and I understand that, listen, expectations were incredibly high, and I think everybody probably underestimated just how off fitness-wise the players would be. But even the most disappointed in terms of style, in terms of results, would say it's a work in progress.
I think in terms of style, like, it's a vast improvement to what we've seen. Like, I posted that statistic on when did we play on Thursday night against Bulgaria. Our passing statistics in the first half against Bulgaria far outstripped everything we've done in the 2 years prior. Like, I compared it to the game against Wales, or away to Wales, exactly 2 years previously, and we'd managed the exact same amount of passes and fewer completed ones in the entire match against Wales that we managed to do against Bulgaria in the first half. Like, things are actually improving. Once we actually get people to score goals, which is, I'd imagine, the next step along the road for Kenny and co, we're going to be all right.
You're not the only one who's feeling positive. Adrian Barry is feeling positive, or at least attempting to feel positive. You've put about 2 minutes work into this, but you've, I think, managed to come up with 5 reasons to be positive. Whoa. Countdown. Are we going to count down from 5 to 1? You did ring our producer, JP, we should say, breaking the fourth wall. You did ring our producer saying, don't make this a big thing. Don't make this a big deal. Don't put fancy music behind it or anything. But there you go. You've no choice.
Are we getting a bleed into our feed from Lyric FM at the minute? Sounds kind of a bit funky. Yeah, like, it should be said, right, that how this has come about is that, like, not that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what's happening at the minute. So, like, before the naysayers, Nathan, the word of the last 7 days, get involved, like, you know, everybody understands that there are things that need to be ironed out. And, like, also, like you said, I at one point today thought that I was going to rewatch the game in preparation for this item, and you know, tot up the number of individual errors that had amounted over the course of the 90-odd minutes, the unforced errors, you know, that weren't tactical.
You're going to do a Seamus Coleman-esque takedown.
No, you haven't. Well, yeah, well, it was just to identify, just to come up with a sheer number of mistakes that were made, either under pressure or not, because it felt to me like a lot of it was down to individual errors, as opposed to, like, tactical or Yeah, any systematic failures necessarily, passes going astray and all that.
So what you're saying is you wanted to revert to type, you wanted to be that negative guy, but you just couldn't be.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a new era for everybody. It's brilliant.
Let's put it that way, Nathan. Let's say that, I wasn't put off by the idea of having to sit down and rewatch that child again for 90 minutes over the course of the afternoon, that I had slightly better things to do. And let's say then that I, like you said, spent 2 minutes coming up with a top 5 reasons to be positive about the Republic of Ireland. So
Number 5.
I want to preface it as well, Nathan, by saying that I didn't reach for the sort of cheap and easy, things can only get better from here as one of these, or, not one person left the ground before the full-time whistle.
Hey.
None of that cheap and easy stuff around here, Nathan.
Wow.
None of it. Number 5, I've gone for the acceptance that the games weren't great, right? They weren't great, but they effectively mean and amount to absolutely nothing. It's the Nations League. Nobody even fully understands how it all works.
I understand.
It'll be less than a footnote.
That is so. This is a bad start, because it does matter, because we've dropped down the world rankings, which will become clear in the coming weeks. They are crucial for the seedings for the World Cup qualifying draw, which is coming up in November. Never mind the long-lasting effects. But listen, that's fine. You may not take them seriously.
Nothing means next to nothing. Nobody fully understands how it works. And can I also ask, Nathan, if you're going to pull these reasons apart each time, the entire setup here is there reasons to be positive. Not for naysayers like you to get involved and sort of poke holes.
This is the least snappy chart countdown ever.
I was just going to say.
Where they do or don't exist. Well, normally you don't have somebody trying to poke holes in your countdown, Richie. That's.
Well, I'm sure back in the day Bruno Brooks had somebody in his ear, but here we are again. You're no Bruno Brooks, Adrian Barry.
Number 4 on the reasons to be positive. Remember, that's the title of this thing about the Republic of Ireland. 2 games in, no matter what your view about whether this is going good, bad, or indifferent, it's undeniable that we are trying to play football. And I believe that after 30 years that, we've now a stated aim and an action aim after the last couple of games that we're starting to play ball. It might not win us games, and we're never guaranteed that anyway, but we're starting to play football. That's number 4 on the list.
Okay.
In at number 3, players.
Here we go.
Players are all speaking very well about this short, I would say, but effective impact that Stephen Kenny and his team have had on it. So I'm assuming from all of that, including Harry Arter, the latest last night, who wouldn't, to be fair to him, have had the foggiest who Stephen Kenny was. I'm sure a quick Wikipedia of him before he came into the first camp. It's the evidence there that the players have bought into this thing, is what I'm saying. So, top line, Stephen Kenny's Wikipedia page, one of Ireland's most successful managers ever is what Harry Arter would have read. And, so all this let's all give this playing football malarkey a go. And I think the players have bought into that. So I think that's number 3.
What is the earliest on record player questioning manager's ability? Like, we are 1 week in. It would be quite shocking if Harry Arter or anybody else came out and said, didn't know much about him before he came in. And haven't been impressed with anything that's happened over. Like, that's just not going to happen. Come on.
Well, he would have the option to say nothing about the style, whereas actually what Harry Arter specifically said, and I've heard others talk about it as well after the game, unprompted, we like this style and we believe this is the way to play football. Like, I understand what you're saying, but I do think that they're offering an opinion on the style of football. They could just say nothing. Harry Arter is definitely a player. I mean, there are others in the team. You were talking to one of them at the post-match press conference last night that might be less of a fan of playing football, but the players are behind it, Nathan.
I thought this was going to be quick. Come on, move on. It's already dragging on.
Number 2 on the list. A poor game, right, against Bulgaria, where the midfield weren't overrun, but couldn't necessarily stamp their authority on that game. But nevertheless, Stephen Kenny was not short of getting the sledgehammer in and going for wholesale changes, and it proves to me that he's not afraid to change it up when he needs to. Sends out a good message to the players that you're not too safe. Stephen Kenny's sledgehammer in at number 2.
Right. Number 1 on the countdown. What could it be?
Aaron Condon, with a special nod to Jason Malumbi and to Adam Ida. Young players, brilliant on the ball, full of energy. They will only know, and some of them already, 2 of those particularly, know that pulling on that green jersey is only about playing football. Particularly Connolly is who I'm singling out here really at number 1. Quieter, obviously, last night than he had been the game before that. But I think he's a player he'll take on opponents, doesn't mind having a bit of a pop when the moment crops up. I'd say he'll react a little bit better, with a bit more quality ball over the top. We'll really see it come into his own. He's the future. A group of players, Nathan, who are the future. A style of football that is the future. Actually, it's not the future, it's the present. Bring on Slovakia next month.
Future is ahead of us, Richie. That is the message I get there from Adrian. Wow, that was thrilling stuff.
Snappy.
Thanks for that, Adrian. I presumed you would have gone with that the previous two managers to get us to a World Cup finals didn't start with a victory. So just because it's a slow start doesn't mean it can't blossom into something beautiful.
Yeah, well, again, you're assuming a level of research that went into this that quite evidently, now that you've heard it, was not the case.
So what I'm hearing is you're strongly disagreeing with Noel King that Stephen Kenny should not be sacked after these two games.
Does that need a response?
Okay.
I presume anybody with a brain would obviously disagree with Noel King.
Relax here. Let's relax.
Is Noel King saying that, by the way, just to be absolutely fair to him here?
I think Noel King isn't calling for Stephen Kenny's head. He's saying, but other less rational people may do just that. I don't know who those people are. Trolls on Twitter, perhaps?
They're like the people, the people that Trump speaks about. They don't really exist.
Those guys. Losers, essentially. This is the News Round. It's with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. 53106, do let us know. We got a lot of football coming up. Kevin Doyle will be with us shortly. We'll have Vinnie Perth as well on the football show. We'll have a good chat about Stephen Kenny and how Stephen Kenny will deal, I guess, with a bit of disappointment for him as well. He looked absolutely shattered in his post-match press conference last night. It's obviously been a really busy week, a lot of travel, and personally, emotionally for him, I'm sure he put a lot into it, so I'm sure he'll take a break for a couple of days and then watch it back. We've had a bit of analysis already, though. Kenny Cunningham has been given his thoughts, Richie.
Yeah, the former Ireland captain is confident that Ireland will bounce back from the defeat to Finland and qualify for Euro 2020. Stephen Kenny will bring his team to Slovakia for the playoff semi-final next month after a draw and a defeat in his first two games as manager in the Nations League. And Cunningham told this morning's OTB AM that with some defensive tweaks in midfield, Ireland will win that crunch tie.
I think we can also talk about the defensive solidity of the midfield three, which hasn't been good enough over the past couple of games. It's been far too easy for opposition teams. We saw Finland in the first half of the game yesterday actually pass through our midfield three and actually get at and expose our defensive four. That's been a little bit too easy. So we need to get our defensive solidity better in that midfield area. Those midfield three really have to narrow up and start making better decisions, get more compact and make it more difficult for opposition teams really to isolate our centre halves and to play those killer balls, which you have been doing in behind our centre halves, and Shane Duffy in particular.
I think Kenny hit the nail on the head there, Adrian. If you want to play this style and you want to press high, and it worked at times last night and on Thursday night, they stole the ball off the defensive midfielder, just didn't take the chances. You need a lot of energy. You need everybody right at it. And if players are at 80% and you see Shane Duffy and John Egan, even after an hour, looking a little bit wrecked and just trying to catch their breath, that in a month's time, presuming players are playing games and have had 3-4 weeks more preparation, a fully fit Ireland is a totally different proposition, regardless of tactics or style or anything.
Yeah, and Shane Duffy was saying that to you, wasn't he? That he kind of had a wry grin about him when you were chatting to him about it afterwards. That essentially they were totally banjaxed. But yeah, there's also stuff like that I buy slightly less, which is the communication thing. That was obviously a big reason for the goal in the Bulgaria game. But players are going to be fitter, Ireland are going to be better, 100%. But I think there are more. I think there's more than that. I think there's more than that we need to work on.
Yeah, about 2 training sessions to work on it before Slovakia. What else you got, Richie?
Noel Quinn announcing today that he's stepping down from his role within the FAI. The former Republic of Ireland striker took up the position of Deputy Interim CEO back in January, and his decision to walk follows the similar decision by Interim CEO Gary Owens not to put himself forward for the permanent CEO position. In a statement, Quinn says he'll remain available to the FAI until a new Deputy CEO is appointed.
No great surprise with this. I think it's sort of been teed up over the last couple of weeks, Richie.
Yeah, especially with Gary Owens going, I figured if he was going to head, then Quinn was going to probably head with him, and it will settle a lot of uneasy talk, I guess, that had been around the association about how Owens and Quinn had come to find themselves in power and what role they were going to have within the association going forward. They've essentially gotten these governance changes that needed to happen and got them over the line, got the government money that they needed, secured jobs at the association. They can walk away with their heads held high and let somebody else have a go at the gig.
Yeah, just to let you know, while we're talking football, we've teamed up with Cadbury FC for a new series of in-depth chats with some of the biggest names in football. A couple of weeks ago, it was Donegal heavy. We had Packy Bonner and Shay Given on. Brilliant conversation with Jody. You can get on all our social channels now. We have knocked it out of the ballpark with the next instalment. Sitting down for an in-depth chat with myself will be none other than Ian Wright and Sol Campbell. We'll bring you the full conversation on OTB social channels and the OTB Sports Radio on Thursday, September 17th. You can check out CabryFC.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. So one very much not to be missed for Arsenal fans. That is Ian Wright and Sol Campbell in our next roadshow with Cabry FC. Richie.
The English Football Association says it will launch a full investigation into Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood's breach of coronavirus protocols. The two players have apologised for a serious lack of judgment and they won't be involved in tomorrow's Nations League game in Denmark. They met up with two women outside the private team area of their hotel following Saturday's 1-0 win over Iceland in Reykjavik. Manchester City called Foden's actions totally unacceptable, while Manchester United said they're disappointed with Greenwood and will liaise with the FA. England manager Gareth Southgate had no hesitation in dropping the pair for their trip to Copenhagen.
What is clear is that there was a breach of the COVID guideline. We've spent, such a long time getting those measures in place, and the whole squad have really followed that to the letter. We've had 4 tests in the period we've been together. Our staff have done an incredible job of keeping that really secure and tight, which was so important both to get the games played, but also for the safety and security of our team and our staff. So in that respect, we have no alternative but to do what we're doing.
Any comment, Adrian?
There's been a lot of comment today, isn't there? Some of it, again, no more than we were talking about the game last night, mildly ridiculous. I saw Southgate himself earlier saying that it's a very serious situation, and some people talking about the impact that it's going to have on their career after this. Like, it'll have no impact whatsoever, and that's sort of fair enough. Like, they're 2 young fellas acting the idiot, shouldn't have done what they did, will be rightly punished for it, and life goes on. Also, they were caught out because the girls they were with posted something to Snapchat. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Which was like a 3-second clip. Was that right?
I haven't seen the Snapchat.
I've seen something that appears to be representing the Snapchat.
Right.
And in my mind's eye,
TV,
when I heard that they'd been out partying and there was like they'd met up, a couple of girls and blah blah blah, I thought, oh, this is like throwing the TVs out of the hotel window, sort of like Gaza firing the eggs out the window sort of style. But like couldn't have been further from the truth. It was like what you expect from like a couple of young fellas like sat in the corner, separate corners on their phone, sort of looking up Twitter or something. It was sort of bizarre. My main thought is they'll be dealt with now. That's fine, and then let them just get on with their lives afterwards.
Few texts in. The most biased journalism I've ever heard. Do your job. Just because you all campaigned for Kenny, you've no right to analyse objectively. You are a disgrace to your trade. I presume that's aimed at you, Adrian.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't as if I set the item up by saying, I understand there were aspects of it that were crap. Stephen Kenny is 2 games into his regime. So, we're cutting him some slack. Let's see how it goes. I want to see some football. Ideally, it's winning football. And, but I'm not going to... I'll reserve that judgment beyond 2 games that nobody gives a flying toss about.
There's no time for that sort of thought. We need rash reactions, is what we're looking for here.
Was that Noel? Who Noel K that texted?
The only positive thing about that game was our national anthem was played in full without some idiots screaming and roaring before the end, says Mike. It's fair enough. I did a bit of screaming and roaring just to sort of try and recreate the atmosphere. You could have just shouted. I would say to Stewie during commentary, so you could just shout randomly some instructions instead of telling the nation. Just tell the players yourself. Just roar it out there. But decided not to do that. I think playing 6 different midfielders was a good idea. Apart from having a look at all the options, they're all going to go back to their clubs with a competitive game under their belt. It'll give them a better chance of getting a few games in the league before they come back for Slovakia. Not sure if that's how Stephen Kenny thought about it. Keep your texts coming in, 53106. We'll have a lot of time to get through them over the course of the evening, particularly in the football show. And Vinny Perth will be with us for the football show. We've got Monday Night Rugby coming up as well with Keith Wood and Liam Toland. Kevin Doyle is on the way next. Adrian, thank you for that. Hopefully we get another countdown from you soon.
Yeah, I look forward to that, Nathan.
Richie, you can't wait either, I can just imagine.
I just once there's more mention of Bruno Brooks, I'm happy.
All right, good stuff. All right, Kevin Doyle's up next.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Isn't it curious that every member of your family has a different voice? That a baby can recognise their mother's voice from inside the womb? That identical twins have the exact same vocal cords but usually don't sound similar? And teenagers can